we had a word called bifuteki, which means beef steak. And that was a synonym of a luxurious dish. Whenever we say bifuteki meant very expensive dish, because we often said as a child, oh, I wish I could eat beefsteak, or I wish I could go to a French restaurant and eat that beefsteak. Oh, that was our dream. Do Japanese people really eat less meat? The truth behind the myth. That's something I'm going to talk about today, so stick around. Hi, my name is Sachiaki Takamiya. I am the author of the Ikigai Diet and Ikigai Bio-Hacking. I had a question to my last video, and the question is, I have a question. Do Japanese people truly eat little meat? I have had a bit of controversy over this topic. Okay, so I would like to answer this question today. Now, it depends on people, just like any nationality, whether you're talking about French people, Australians, or Americans, it depends on people. Some people eat a lot of meat, other people don't eat much meat. So depending on who you are talking about. Now, generally speaking, I can categorize Japanese people into several groups. For example, young people or old people or people live in the urban area or the countryside. So the diet between young people and old people are quite different, and the diet between urban citizens and the country residents are quite different. Now, it also depends on your idea of what is little and what is a lot. Compared to who or compared to what nationality? And even if you compare to, let's say, Americans, which Americans are you comparing to? Are you comparing to vegan Americans or carnivore Americans or regular Americans and so on? So let's compare the standard Japanese diet. So like the meat consumption in the standard Japanese diet with the meat consumption in the standard American diet. So compared to that, according to OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, generally lower than, Japan generally lower than the United States. Japan's total meat consumption, beef, veal, pig, poultry, and sheep per capita is around 45 to 50 kilograms per year. The United States higher than Japan. The OECD estimates per capita consumption to be around 95 to 100 kilograms per year. This means American on average consumes twice the amount of meat as Japanese people. And I think this is roughly true. That kind of similar to my observation. Now, this is partly because we don't eat the same kind of meat as Americans do in Japan. We don't eat steak. Have you ever been to Japan, by the way? Have you been to Japanese supermarket and look at the meat section? We don't have this kind of meat. The type of meat we have are these kind of meat. To look at closely, so these thinly sliced meat. And that's the type of meat we eat a lot in Japan. We do have a steak section, but usually steak section is much smaller than these regular sliced meat section. And the type of dishes we eat are like yakiniku, which is a Korean barbecue. We grill these thinly sliced meat, or we eat them in sukiyaki format, or this is the pork ginger. We call it butano shogayaki. Again, sort of sliced meat. And in ramen, we put the sliced meat too. So steak is not so common in Japan. We do have some slightly thicker meat, such as tonkatsu, which is a pork cutlet, and torino karaage, which means the fried chicken. So slightly thicker, but still the amount is not so much. Therefore, generally speaking, the amount in each meal may be smaller than the amount in the American meat dishes. And the frequency is less because we eat a lot of other food as well. We eat a lot of fish. We have sushi, of course. We have sashimi, and this type of fish and that type of fish. We have a lot of fish dishes, and of course we have other seafoods such as shrimp, crabs, squid, octopus, and so on. And then we have natto, soybeans, and tofu. Therefore, we eat a mixture of everything. Yes, we do eat some meat, but that's not the only thing we eat. Now, so the questioner said something about controversy. So I don't exactly understand what the person meant by controversy, but probably what I think is the controversy between the plant-based diet advocates and animal-based diet advocates. So for the plant-based side, they would like to think that the Japanese diet is a plant-based diet. Because if that is true, then because Japanese people live long, Japanese people are healthy, so it becomes a proof that the plant-based diet is the key to health and longevity. On the other hand, the advocates of the animal-based diet would say, no, 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 that is not true. Japanese people eat meat. Therefore, they are meat-eating people. So the meat is the key to health and longevity. So neither is true. We do eat some meat, but not a lot of meat. And yes, we do eat a lot of plant as well. We have a lot of soy products, and we have, by the way, we eat lots of vegetables. Regardless of meat dish, fish dish, soybean dish, we eat a lot of vegetables as well. And when you talk about the blue zones, I suppose you're talking about centenarians and old people. So when we talk about centenarians, then their diet is not the modern diet. You're talking about the diet they have had throughout their life, which means like a long time ago. So you'd have to go back to the diet before the 1970s. So 1970s to even before 1960s, 1950s. And that time, our diet was completely different from the modern diet. So the data I showed you that Americans eat twice as much meat as Japanese do. So that is a recent data. That's in like 2022 or 2023, the recent data. But back in 1970s, we ate a lot less meat than today. For example, I'll show you an example of a typical 1970s meal in Japan. This is called 1975 meal. It is very popular now as a sort of a standard of a healthy diet. Now in Japan, the typical meal we ate back in 1975 is considered to be a standard of what a healthy diet should look like. So if you look carefully, we have fish, miso soup, some beans, rice, some vegetable, and a little meat. In fact, this is called nikujaga, so potato with sliced beef. But see the amount? I mean, it's a tiny bit. It's not even like meat. But yeah, I mean, there is a meat. So it's not completely plant-based in that sense. I mean, of course, we have fish, but it's not completely meat-free. We do have meat. But look at the amount. So would you say this is a lot of meat? Probably not. And this is very true because I lived in 1970s. I was born in 1962, and I grew up in 60s and 70s. And then back in 70s, I remember we didn't eat that much meat. I mean, we did eat meat, but probably once a week or not every day. Definitely not every day, because meat was expensive. Meat was a luxurious dish. In fact, we had a word called bifuteki, which means beef steak. And that was a synonym of a luxurious dish. Whenever we say bifuteki meant very expensive dish, because we often said as a child, oh, I wish I could eat beefsteak, or I wish I could go to a French restaurant and eat that beefsteak. Oh, that was our dream, really. And also, we even made a joke or kind of a we're gossiping because there was a classmate who was sort of wealthy, from a wealthy family, and oh, he must be eating meat every day, that kind of thing. So eating meat was associated with a wealthy lifestyle. And therefore, for average Japanese people, yes, we did eat meat, but not so much. Therefore, if you're talking about the centenarians' diet throughout their life, probably they didn't eat that much meat. Only in the recent, maybe decade, in the last decade or so, we start eating a lot of meat. And maybe centenarians today might eat some meat, but not the majority of their life. So, in that sense, it's not a lie that their diet was predominantly plant based. And for fish, fish was different because in Japan we do eat a lot, but except Okinawa though. Okinawa is different. Okinawa, they eat much less fish compared to the main island of Japan. So I cannot really speak about the Okinawan diet, but when you talk about the Japanese diet back in 1970s, we had more fish than meat. So, Japanese vegetarians, that's another myth. Some people think we're vegetarian, and I'm not surprised because we're Buddhist. And in Buddhism, there's a concept called ahimsa, which is the core principle of ahimsa extends compassion to all creatures. Vegetarianism is a way to minimize harm caused to animals. And we do have Zen Shojin diet, or it is called Shojin diet or Shojin ryori, which is practiced among Zen monasteries or kind of Buddhist temples in general. It's a Buddhist concept, and they are very kind of plant. I wouldn't say 100%, but pretty much plant-based diet, and they try to eat less meat. Maybe not 0%, but at least less meat. Therefore, we do have this sort of vegetarian way of thinking in our culture. However, not everybody is Buddhist. Plus, we have we do have a Shintoism, plus kind of Taoist influence in Japan too. Japanese culture is a mixture of many things in some ways. So definitely there is sort of Buddhist influence. Yet, I don't think there are many vegetarians or vegans in Japan. There are some, but compared to the number of vegetarians and vegans in the West, the number is very small. And even if there are some vegetarians or vegans in Japan, they may not be as strict as the Western vegetarians or vegans. For example, I haven't met many vegetarians in Japan who, for example, were invited to another person's house and then meat was served. And then they would like refuse. No, I haven't seen that. Usually they just eat if something is served. Even the monks too, the Buddhist monks would probably not refuse to eat meat if they were invited someone's home and then meat was served, because that would sort of destroy the harmony, and that is also considered not be polite and good in Japanese culture. Yeah, this is because we don't see things black and white. We don't see things right and wrong. I mean, there are some distinction, but not as strongly as it is expressed in the Western culture. So even people who are vegetarians, vegan, they would not like fight against the meat eaters, that kind of mentality. And they themselves are not very strict compared to the Westerners. We have a very different kind of mentality in this point. So to the answer to the original questions, do German people really eat less meat? Yes, we probably eat less meat than average Western people, but we are not vegetarians. We don't practice so-called the plant-based diet. But it really depends on people. Some people are very strict vegetarians and vegans, and they might refuse to meat wherever they go. That's possible. And some people eat meat every day with every meal, and some people eat meat just, average amount. So it all depends on people. And it changes depending on young people or old people, or whether you live in the urban area or the countryside. Now, the differences among those diets, please read the Ikigai Diet. In chapter 1, I describe the diet of young people, old people, the urban area, and the countryside. Also, I talked about the diet of 1975, and that is considered to be a standard of a healthy diet in Japan. However, I don't agree with it completely. I don't think this is a standard of a healthy diet. So what is the standard of a healthy diet according to the Ikigai Diet? Please read the book. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Again, my name is Sachiaki Takamiya, the author of the Ikigai Diet and Ikigai Bio-Hacking. If you like this video, please give me your thumb up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for subscribing, by the way. I have now over 8,000 subscribers. I'm so happy. So pretty soon, I will get 10,000 subscribers. And if I do, I'll be so happy. So please subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed. I will appreciate it so much if you do. Thank you. And please leave your comment. Have you been to Japan, or do you know many Japanese people? And, how about them? Do they eat a lot of meat? How much meat do your Japanese friend eat? Thank you. Well, I will see you in the next video. Live with your Ikigai!